Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's session. Our webinar will begin in just a few minutes. While you're waiting, feel free to review our program information at csudh.edu/CCPE-managing, and we will start momentarily. Good day, everyone. My name is Anissa Barton-Thompson, and I'm the social media specialist for the College of Continuing and Professional Education here at California State University, Dominguez Hills, and I'll be your host for today's session. Thank you for joining us. This webinar is being recorded and will be available on our website and social media resources shortly after today's session. Feel free to download the CSUDH Managing for Success Certificate Program Information Kit for details about the program and additional resources covered in this webinar. The address is bit.ly/CSUDH-MGX-InfoKit. We have provided a link in the chat for those who are participating live. It will also be available via a follow-up email to attendees, as well as on our website and other resources. So before we jump in, I'd like to review the Zoom controls. This session is being presented in a webinar format, so you won't need to worry about connecting your microphone or your camera. However, we want your participation, so help us address your needs. Use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen if you are joining us from the Zoom desktop app or the web browser, or in the top right of your screen if you're on a mobile device. Please ask your questions in the Q&A panel rather than in the chat panel. Once you click that Q&A button, a dialog box will open, allowing you to type your question. In the chat panel, we will be providing helpful links and other information. Our marketing staff members, Stephanie Bukian and Keith Otterberg, as well as our program manager, Elizabeth Legg, are standing by to assist. We'll be answering those questions at the end of the session, although often you may find the question you have has been answered during the program overviews. So with that being said, let's take a quick look at our agenda for this certificate program session, also known as MGX, that's our abbreviation. We'll begin by meeting our certificate faculty, who will introduce you to the program via an overview of benefits expectations, and course details. Then we'll go over the registration and login information and address your questions in our Q&A session. We'll also have a survey at the end of this webinar, and we'd love to get your feedback so we can make sure our future events are even better. And if you're on social media, please use hashtag CSUDH Continuing Ed or our social tags at CSUDH Continuing Ed. And now to kick off today's presentation, I'll turn us over to Mr. Jim Vigneau, one of our 4 insightful instructors for the program. Jim, take it away.
Thank you so much, Anisha, and welcome everybody to our program this evening. We're going to be covering an awful lot of information, but like building a home, we need to start with some of the foundational items. And what I'd like to do first is to introduce each of the faculty that will be presenting this program throughout the various semesters that are to come. For myself, I am a human resource executive, an administration executive, and an operations executive, having served as a COO for a couple of companies. And so I bring about 40 years of all of that broad experience into the program. But I'm not the only one. We have here, I'd like to have Jen, if you would introduce yourself and tell everybody a little bit about what you bring to the table.
Thank you, Jim. Hi, everyone. I am Jen, and I am a professional in human resources and management. Been in the industry for over 25 years. In that, been managed myself, have managed others, and developed management training programs to train managers up and coming through the ranks, and have been 10 years teaching the program here. So, very exciting things, and I've seen the ways transition. So it's a really challenging, and I really enjoy it. Jeanie.
Thank you, Jen. Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming this evening. I'm Jeanie Talbot. I've been an instructor in this program for 18 years. And early in 1989, I was initially hired as a recruiter for an independent placement firm, which evolved into various client consulting opportunities. At which point, one of my clients decided to hire me as its human resource manager. I ultimately became certified HR professional, created several in-house staff training programs. In 2005, I founded my own independent consulting practice, having built solid relationships with client business owners and executives representing small to mid-sized firms. Specific consulting projects have included leadership and organizational development, performance management program development, conflict resolution, safety, security, and risk management assessments, budget compensation analysis, and compliance training. I've been in the industry for nearly 30 years, and now I'll turn the mic over to Linda. Linda?
Hi, thanks, Jeanie. I'm Linda Nespole. I'm the newest member to this instructor team, and my background is primarily in human resources, mostly in a manufacturing industry. I've been with Cal State Dominguez Hills since 2017. I'd say the majority of my role has been working with all levels of management. Some of the specific areas I help managers with is in coaching and developing existing employees, dealing with performance problems, supporting problem resolution and decision-making, translating company goals into functional and individual goals, monitoring and controlling expenses and budgets, helping managers to use analytics for reporting results to senior managers, and planning and goal setting for future periods. These are just some of the areas we will be covering in this program. Right, Jim?
That's correct, Linda. As you can tell, the team brings a tremendous amount of skills and talent and experience in management and in supporting management throughout all of our careers. You know a little bit about us, but what we'd like to know is a little bit about you, because one of the things that we do is that is that we tailor this program to our audience. And so what we really want to be able to do is to find out just a little bit about you. So if you would please answer the questions that are coming up here. There's only 2 of them in taking a look at what is your experience in management, and then what skills do you want to take away from this program? Because again, we customize this program to our audiences. And in each class, depending upon who the participants are, we will customize at that level as well. If you could just answer these 2 quick questions, we will then provide you some of the feedback a little bit later in the program once we have those results all added up. So if you just take a moment and we'll take a look at that. Now, let's talk a little bit about what this certificate is. We do have, of course, the basic certificate, and we want to share with you what our approach is with this particular program. What it is giving you the tools and the skills to really be better at your job. It's difficult being a manager these days, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. It is focused on the operational facets of management. What is it that a manager these days must be able to do in order to be successful as a manager? And it looks at examining how to effectively manage a team, which can be one of the most challenging aspects of wearing that manager hat. What it is not is to teach you the technical aspects of your particular job. If you are a warehouse manager, we're not going to teach you warehousing, or engineering if you're an engineering manager, or if you're in QA, or if you're in accounting or human resources or administration, whatever it happens to be. We're not going to teach you your job. We're going to give you the tools to be better at your job as a manager. So that's really what we're about in this particular program. Now, let's take a look a little bit at management today. As an occupation, you're in not an exclusive club, but you're in a fairly small club. You are selected to be a leader. And you're really looking at having to face the challenges of that leadership role as it is today. What I'd like to do is, Jen, if you would just share a little bit, as I mentioned before, management today is very different than what it's been. What is it like to be a manager today?
Thank you, Jim. Yes, definitely. So today a manager is very different. As we know in the past, the role of manager was really confined to 5 basic principles, which we planned, we organized, direct, staffing, and controlled. But there's so much more under that umbrella than just that specifically. So in our workplaces today, in our organizations and society today has changed so dramatically. People are more knowledgeable. There's more technology, so information travels quickly. Change happens faster. Competition is more fierce. We have more regulations we have to comply with. Therefore, managers have to shift their focus to take on more challenges of the new emerging markets and trends and the workforce that's out there. Managers are expected to interact and build relationships with partners and customers for the growth of the organization. Therefore, they have to look towards the future and have foresight to help the organization evolve continuously. They have to focus on learning, meaning that you have to continually expand your knowledge and learn new things, as well as understand more of the regulations. You have to have the ability to delegate, to bring out the best from each employee that you have, to encourage them to think on their own and make them more confident. To be able to create leaders from them and prepare them for the company for the future workforce that they have. Managers have to be innovative by experimenting and taking new challenges, and be proactive to encourage and motivate employees. A manager overall needs to be flexible to be able to adapt. They have to be creative and have empathy towards all as well. Therefore, as a manager, you have a wide umbrella you must understand. You have to understand the complete business side, the legal issues, and then your workforce and their own empathy issues that you might have with them. But also, as times change, we had COVID that impacted us. So Jeanie, can you tell us some of the challenges we had in management with COVID?
I'd very much like to do that, Jen. Thank you. Here is some of the most common challenges that businesses are currently facing, and particularly since the onset of COVID. For example, businesses are trying to redefine normal with all of the challenges that came about from reduction in staff. There are new questions that have arisen as a result of this. Performance assessments. How do you define or redefine the performance standards in your companies? Employee engagement with reduction in staff. How do you get the new team or the redefined team engaged with each other? There's some new positions that have come about as well. Conflict resolution has also arisen. Transition from having been a coworker to a manager. People who originally were existing employees in the companies, now having been laid off, then coming back, and not everybody has come back. We have to promote responsibilities and new ways of leadership in the company. So transitioning from a coworker position to a manager position is a major concern and a major challenge for managers now. Reduced budgets and resources, increased remote work. A lot of workplaces now have permanently put their some of the positions and employees on assigned remotely. And so now with remote work, now you have to consider liability and policy updates to incorporate those requirements and those considerations. So Linda, what does this mean for us in the future? How are we to meet those challenges that have arisen from COVID?
Well, Jeanie, that's a very good question. So what does the future look like for managers? With so many different generations working together, managers must be a leader and be able to adapt to future employees. A manager exists to make his or her people more successful. Managers must also understand technology now that technology has become such a crucial part of how we live and how we work. Managers must support relevant technology and embrace the new concepts. In other words, some of the old ways of doing things may not be applicable today. Managers must also provide real-time feedback and recognition to their team and understand the benefit and value in sharing information. Managers must also understand the importance of clear and concise communication and the benefit of connecting with their employees. So this program offers insight to all these and so much more, but I'll let Jim go into greater details about that.
Thank you, Linda. So as you can tell, it's not easy any longer to be a manager. It is a true challenge. It is very complex. So as you take a look at management occupations these days, you're asked to do more than just set a schedule, check that people have come in to the workplace, check their time cards, pull the rope horn when it comes time for lunchtime and let the whistle blow or anything like that. So in our management occupations, we're really looking at you're required to help establish plans and policies. You're looking to direct business activities. You're doing so much more in your role as a manager. You are overseeing people, products, services. Those are the things that really are challenging you as a leader and as a manager. Anissa, are we ready to? Yeah, there we go. So as you are doing these things, let's take a look at your management industry sectors. When you take a look at what occupations really make up industry, if you take a look at the split of the pie, as a manager, you cross all industries. We need managers in every single industry, so there's a real demand for that. You're about 15% of the occupations within any in any given industry, and it is it's not so much that we just need to have that number of managers. What businesses are looking for now are managers that that really are effective in their job. So you're seeing management growth and management having to adapt. to industry now. As you're taking a look at it, you're looking at the projected growth rate of managers is greater than that. Even though you're only 15% of the occupations out there, you are a growth occupation. There is a greater and greater need for managers to be out there helping the businesses to continue to thrive and to be successful. And if you're successful as a manager, you're going to be part of a successful enterprise and a successful company. Without good, strong managers, companies will not succeed. So let's take a look at what we have focused this program on. Who should really attend these programs? And we set it up to be fair, to really address the concerns or the needs of a very broad audience. We're looking at people who are current leaders and managers, or are supervisors and looking to move up in the management ladder. Line and middle managers, these are individuals that are key to any enterprise and any operation. And we've also been able to target those individuals who are looking and are staged ready to become a manager or a supervisor, ready to be able to move into it. And if you have the tools and the skills and the approaches that are required to be a successful manager, you now become a more successful candidate for management. So we have built the program to be able to really address those particular individuals. And so as you can see, it's a fairly broad spectrum of soon to be, current, entry level, middle level, and even higher level managers and leaders. So let's take a look at our poll results to see, based upon our audience here, what has been our experience. And again, it covers that spectrum that we just described. About a third of you are aspiring to move into management. About half of you are looking for additional skills to build on those where you've had more experience. And for those of you just kind of starting, it's like, okay, I want to be able to swim in the deep end. What do I need to do in order to be able to do that? Okay, so it again reflects where we have built this program to target. What are you looking to take away from this? Hard skills, budget management, that's about a fifth of the audience. Soft skills, employee engagement, team building, basically team management is about 25%. The vast majority of you are looking for both of those things, because you do understand the fact that to wear a management hat really means that it's two hats. It's one, how do you manage the function? How do you manage yourself in a leadership role? And then also, how do you manage the team? Because if your team is successful, you as a manager are successful. So let's take a little closer look at what the program really involves. This is a 4-course program. There are 4 courses, 16 sessions, 4 sessions per course. At the completion of all 4 courses, a certificate is awarded, and you can complete it in as little as 4 months. That's it's 16 weeks, and you will have that certificate in your hands as a result, having completed all of those. You can do it all at once. It's a semester-long course, certificate course. However, if because you are one of those very busy individuals that is a manager, if you have to step out for one of the courses, you can always come back and complete it in a subsequent term and complete your certificate then. But if you're able to put it all together in 16 straight weeks, you can do it. The 4 areas that we take a look at, these are the MGX numbers, but we start off taking a look at your organizational role. How do you fit into the organization? How do you operate within that broader organization? We'll take a little bit of a deeper dive here in just a moment. The second course deals with your functional role. What are you doing functionally? And once you have some of those skills, how do you really apply them successfully and to support the enterprise and the growth of the enterprise, the success of your team, your department? Then we take the next two courses. We switch hats from that organizational and functional role, the more practical side of it. And then we move into those other areas where how do I manage this team? How do I make them successful? And that's the other half of being a manager, and that's half of our program there. So let's look at each of these individually, each of these sessions individually. Once we do that, now again, the schedule is on weeknights. It's a 3-hour commitment, one night a week. The courses will be scheduled year round, so you are able to step out and step back in if that's required of you. You do in receiving or in going through these courses, whether you complete the certificate or not, for each course that you complete, you will receive continuing education units. So you do have a transcript, you do earn units that are CE units. You'll have a digital credential awarded upon completion. And because it is a CEU-based program, attendance and partition are required for that credit. Okay, we are conducting this course online via our learning management system and Zoom. So the learning management system with CSUDH, and we're all, since COVID, become real expert Zoomies. So you'll end up being a Zoomer through the particular course. All right, let's do that dive. For the organizational role, the 4 sessions will cover these 4 topics. We'll look at the roles and impacts of being a manager. How do you impact the organization? How do you impact your team? The second course takes a look at learning the business. Most of us have a basis in our HR backgrounds as instructors, but we've also moved into management and operations as well. So we know what it is to operate outside of those areas. And as such, we need to know the business. You as a manager need to know the business, not just what your job is, but you need to know the business so that you can be more successful in your job. So we take a look at that. We look at the legal aspects of management, and this is a very, very important area, because the liabilities that you can either create or that can fall upon your shoulders are liabilities that you want to be able to avoid. So you need to know how to operate effectively. You as a manager want to be able to move from point A to point B. What is going to be the best, safest, and most effective route in order to be able to get from point A to point B and achieve your goals as a manager? You want to be able to do it in a way that is going to protect not only the organization and your employees, but also yourself as well. The fourth area that we take a look at, and like it or not, you're going to need to know your numbers, is budget management. We'll take a look at what is it to read a balance sheet. What is that telling you? How do you look at a P&L? How do you develop a budget? How do you manage a budget? How do you analyze and use it? So that will round out the first class of your organizational role. Then we move into your functional role, and in your functional role, in the second class, you'll start to build some really good hard skills. We'll take a look at basic project management. You'll learn how to be able to manage an entire project. I've seen situations where I was operating as an operations executive, and my marketing group was having really tremendous difficulty managing their projects. I showed them how to be able to manage tasks, time, resources, and budget. You put those four things together and you chart it, you can manage multiple projects. And all of a sudden, instead of missing all their deadlines, they were hitting their deadlines. They were hitting their budgets. They were hitting their cost parameters. And so that's what we're going to be looking at in our basic project management section. Change is a constant. You would think that change only comes occasionally. Well, we've all learned that change is a constant, but how can you effectively manage it? That's what we're going to take a look at in our second session under the functional role. Metrics and analytics. You'll learn how to be able to measure your functions, to be able to measure your actions and activities and those of your department. We'll also take a look at how you analyze and use that information. It isn't just measuring it and getting your numbers. What do they tell you? What do they tell you that you should be doing or must be doing or should not be doing? We move into the analytical side of things. And then in our fourth session, we take a look at labor costing and variance analysis. Variances are usually something that people in a manufacturing environment take a look at, but you can also use that in a service situation. You can use that in an administrative environment. And some people think, no, that's not something that really would impact me, but it really truly does. For a lot of companies and a lot of organizations, labor is the most expensive single expense item that accounting looks at and your finance department looks at. So you need to know how to be able to cost labor and how to take a look at variances against your standards. So we will take a look at that as well in our functional role. It's a skill that many managers do not have. And if you're able to bring that to the table, that's going to increase your value as a manager. Then we start to move into our team development areas. In the third section, we'll take a look at effective selection interviewing. As a manager, if you don't hire the right person up front, you're going to suffer subsequently to that hire if it's not a good hire. So we're going to take a look at how can you give yourself the best chance for making the best hire through that interview process before they even come on board. Then we'll also take a look at onboarding and employee engagement. It may sound like, oh, this is kind of soft, fuzzy bear, fluffy stuff, but in actuality, your effectiveness in onboarding an employee, not just having HR run them through orientation and sign their forms. We're going to take a look at how do you engage them? How do you bring them into the team and become a real effective contributing member of that team? That's what true onboarding is. And you as the manager of that new employee are key to that effort. And so we're going to take a look at how you can build a better onboarding and engagement program for your new employees and your existing employees as well. Training and development will be our third program on there. I am not a believer in training for training's sake because it's just, as far as I'm concerned, can be a big waste of time. If you're going to train your employees and if you're going to add value to them, you need to know how to build a good training program, how to recognize it, how to develop your employees, and it's not something that you can just leave to the HR group to do that nice, soft, warm, fuzzy stuff. You as a manager need to be developing your employees and helping them continue to be successful as the environment changes, as technology changes, as processes change. It's not just change management, it's also training and development as an integrated part of that growth and continuing expansion and success. When you deal with people, you're going to deal with problems. When you deal with anything, you're going to deal with problems. The machines break down, the electricity goes out, you're going to have issues, with general operations. The telephone system goes down and all of a sudden customer service is sitting on their thumbs. But you also have issues where you are going to have a lot of those people problems because people are not like machines. You can always fix a machine by ordering the part, installing the part, and running the machine again. People aren't handled that same way, and you're going to need to be able to handle those really sensitive and often complex issues that come up with solving problems with your team members. Okay. And then in our last course, we'll take a look at performance management, which is more than just the annual review. We'll look at coaching, counseling, and conflict resolution is something that was mentioned earlier when we were talking about what it is to be a manager. And all three of those things are very different things. You might, even though they're kind of jumbled together and you might look at them as being, oh, it's kind of all one and the same, it really is not. And we will take a look at what each of these three items means and how effective you are as a manager can have such a tremendous impact on not only your employee team members, but also on your department operations and productivity within your organization. We'll also take a look at influencing. Influencing is a communication skill that's fairly simple when you look at it on paper, but is very difficult to implement in real life. It is the skill, the ability to change an objection or a no to a yes. If somebody is pushing back against you, whether it's an employee, whether it's a manager in another department that you have to team with, or if it's an executive that you report to, or it would be a report to in another organization. How do you influence in all three of those particular levels and change that skepticism or that outright objection into support for your position and for your premise? So we'll take a look at that, because that's something that you're going to need to be able to have as a manager to achieve the ability to move from that point A to that point B. Okay, and then we will wrap it up with labor management relations. Some of you or most of you may not be in a union environment. Some of you may be, and you know what it is to deal with labor management relations. And when we talk about labor management, we're talking about generally union environments. However, if you're not in a union environment, you are still impacted by the major law that governs unions in the United States. You are still impacted by it. So when we will take a look at what it is to operate under that from a communications standpoint, from a problem resolution standpoint, and what it is to actually deal in a union environment. And this is, and we'll put you through an exercise where you'll actually negotiate a little mini contract. And it's really great skill building for those individuals who may not be in a union environment to deal with a situation where you're across the table and in an adversarial communication and to go through a negotiation and to use your skills in communication, in problem solving, in conflict resolution that we will have already looked at, and apply them to that adversarial relationship and come to that win-win that we talk about achieving and influencing. So it's a nice wrap up, even though it's under the umbrella of negotiating a contract. You're utilizing all of those communication and people skills that effective managers have in being able to come to resolution on that final item. So again, it's a program that covers all of those particular areas. So as you can see, there are going to be a number of benefits that will come out of earning the certificate here. First and foremost, we're going to build and expand your management toolbox. This is not a theoretical class. This is in just about every session, we will talk about what these skills, techniques, approaches, processes are, and you'll have a chance to actually practice them in pretty much each session. So we'll be developing some strong management skills and techniques. Those tools are only going to be as really useful and good for you as a manager if you take them out of the toolbox. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to load your toolbox, and then we're going to have you take them out and use them. You'll also understand the influence, the impacts of being a manager. It's more than you may think. If your line management and middle management are not success, those executives up there in the ivory tower are not going to be successful either. Neither will that enterprise, neither will that organization. Okay, so you are key to the success of the organization. You have a tremendous level of influence and impact on that enterprise. You'll learn and understand management best practices. All of the skills and the techniques and approaches that we have built into this program are based upon management best practices. And as with all of our programs, and this one in particular, we do an annual review to take a look at how do we change this? Are there new best practices? Are there improvements on those best practices? And how can we incorporate them in? So you're going to be putting your hands on real approaches and skills and techniques that are current and that are strong and that are working for you. And then finally, you'll walk away with better ways to be able to manage a team of individuals. And they are all going to be individual. And that's your challenge. You need to be able to deal with each and every member of your team as effectively as you can based upon that individual, not just the team in general. Okay, so we are going to do that kind of a drill down. So that's what we're looking for you to be able to walk away with in this particular program. So how do you get in to this program? Anissa, I'm going to turn that one over to you.
You got it. Thank you so much, Jim. Thank you to the whole team. This is incredibly insightful information, and we know it's a lot to cover, but we're going to come back to our instructors in just a moment to go into our Q&A segment. So if you guys can sit tight for just a moment. But what we're going to do is just quickly go over some of the details about the logistics of the program. So almost all of the CSUDH professional development programs are being offered in an online format, which means that students are assigned online access through our campus's IT services. Each student will need login credentials to access our student portal, which is called My CSUDH. This portal includes our learning management system, where course content is distributed, Toro Mail, which is our Gmail-based student email system, and of course, the Zoom web conferencing tool. These login credentials, which consist of your username, your email account, and password, are issued through our registration office approximately 2 to 3 business days after registration in your very first course. So enrollment is available from our College of Continuing and Professional Education registration office. The hours are Monday through Thursday, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., Friday from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., and Saturday from 8 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. If you have taken courses with us at Dominguez Hills recently, you may actually be able to register online using your my.csudh.edu account. We highly recommend that you register early to make sure that there's space in the course and to allow enough time for course information and online access information to be created and distributed to you. Payment is due at the time of registration. And if you need any additional financial assistance, please Google private student loan providers or connect with salliemay.com for student loan details. And that information is also in the chat for those who are attending live. Again, we recommend that you register at least 1 week before the course begins. And once you've received your login information, you'll be able to easily access the Toro student portal to connect with your class and check your Toro mail and personal emails frequently for special instructions and campus notifications. You'll also want to be sure to test your account access in the learning management system and get comfortable with the layout of the class, such as where to find announcements, Zoom meeting schedules, discussions, and the like. Let us know via our academic technology services if you have any difficulties connecting. Okay, so that brings us to our Q&A segment. And I do see that we have a couple of quick questions in the chat. I'm going to stop my share so that our panelists can come up. And if you guys can go ahead and unmute yourselves. And we will go to our very first question, which came from David, who asks, how do these 4 courses relate to MGX 921 and MGX 923, which is part of our current Management and Supervision Certificate program? Okay.
Well, I'll go ahead and at least address that. What we have done is that we saw a very, very strong need to take a look at what we were offering and what is currently on the books that was primarily a team management approach. And we felt that that what we really wanted to be able to achieve was to essentially take the best of what we have in those 2 courses and expand it into something that looked more like, that included more of that organizational and functional role of management, and really take a look at building management skills and really kind of bringing that other hat back in that I was referring to, the 2 hats, the operational hat and the team management hat. The first 2 are the team management hat is what we had on there. We felt that we needed to bring the operational hat in as well and provide a much more well-rounded program for our managers and supervisors out there. It's all well and good to know how to how to manage the team, but you also need to know how to manage yourself and to really be a stronger, more effective, more skilled manager in the workplace. The demands on management now, as the panel was talking about earlier, are much, much higher than just being good with people. And that's what this new program really is all about. It's a significant expansion on what has been offered in the last few years. Excellent,
excellent. Hugo asks, does the program address managing international staff virtually? He says 75% of his team sits in other countries. Okay.
Well, I'll jump into that just a little bit, and then Linda, I'll kind of turn it over to you. Jeannie talked about the challenges of COVID. We've all become virtual experts these days. And I would love to be able to take a look at what we're looking at here and how do you apply it across numerous time zones or different sections of the world, and how can you effectively do that? And the technology helps tremendously, but what are you going to do about engagement? How do you deal with some of those other areas? I think that it would be really a tremendous discussion point in all of our classes. Linda, you were going to jump in with something.
Yeah, I was going to say, in a couple of my last jobs, we had a lot of call centers that were international. And my experience with engagement has been offering contests, and I have some, tricks up my sleeves to dovetail on what Jim was just saying. Engagement is really important when you're managing teams overseas. The technology, obviously, we have these kind of calls, but unless you really, you lose that human element unless you really make an effort to get to it. And I do have some tricks up my sleeves that I can discuss with my class, and that's a good discussion point to bring up with the class to see. That's kind of what we like to do. We like to bring other perspectives into our learning curriculum. It's nice to see what other people inside the classroom what their experience are. And that's a lot of what we do in our courses. We share information, and that's really important. And you get a lot out of that.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. I see Jen has joined us as well. I'm going to ask this quick question without too much of the detail. We have a question for what day of the week does the class take place? That's from Zolma. What day of the week does the class take place?
For the current semester, it will be on Wednesday nights, starting February 15th. I think that's in the chat area. And that's when the certificate starts, is February 15th. It'll be Wednesday evenings, running from 6:30 to 9:30. Unless we want to, skip the mid break and we can get out a little bit earlier.
Okay, sounds good. Hugo has a follow-up question. He says, if I decide to pursue a graduate degree, would these courses be considered based on the institution or degree that he chooses? In other words, I think he's looking to ask, would these be considered academic courses or academic content?
Well, these are CEU courses.
Continuing education.
Yeah, they're continuing education units that you would earn. They're not transferable over to academic units, as I understand, unless somebody more expert in that than I can go into it. Generally, what you will see is that our approach will be a little bit more practical in its orientation, whereas on the academic side, it's a little more theoretical. And you learn the concepts and the theories behind the actions that build the skill, that back what we teach you now here's how you apply these kinds of things. So we're a little more practical in our orientation, but if you're looking at transfer of units, that's not something that's going to happen here.
Right. And Hugo, our program coordinator or program director, Elizabeth Legg, did confirm that it is not an academic program. It is strictly career professional. So the continuing education units are what you would have. You will receive a transcript. You will also receive a digital credential, but it is not for academic or graduate level coursework. So.
But you go into that graduate class, you'll know more than anybody else.
Yes, well, especially with these experts here. So the next question I have is how, if someone was just coming into this experience and the managing experience, what other kinds of skills, this program is going to do a great job to prepare them, but what other kinds of things would you recommend that they would need to know in terms of soft skills, in terms of maybe changes in technology, software, and so on? What kinds of things are you thinking trend-wise that you would recommend that they would need?
Communication and problem solving would be the topic areas that I would go into. Being a really good active listener is probably the greatest communication skill that you could develop as a professional, as a manager, as an executive. Learn how to not react, but to act. And those are things that we base a lot of our programs on. Jeanie, I know you're big on this stuff.
One of the things that you taught us, actually, Jim, was he's the instructor's instructor here. In any event, one of the things that I learned a long time ago, not only from Jim, but from on-the-job experience, has been to be proactive rather than reactive, that you kind of think in terms when you're listening to someone, you get clues as to their emotional responses or their thought process. There are a lot of clues as to how your teams and individuals are responding or may have concerns about in terms of the program, the ongoing program, or the ongoing scenarios in your workplaces. So it's very, very important. But I always remembered that rule of thumb. We need to be proactive, not reactive. And the way that you become more proactive is by truly honing in on your listening, on the listening skills. The other thing that I would also put into play here, and Jim, you said this a couple of times this evening, and that is, you need to know numbers, become familiar with numbers, partner with your numbers. Metrics are important. Everything is essentially measurable. And one of the key aspects of the course is that you go into and practice with exactly identifying what is measurable. You can go through all of your assessments within your workplaces, and you can find all the positions are measurable, performance is measurable. How are we doing individually, departmentally, as well as company-wide? So numbers, analytics, analysis, That's all very important. It's all part of the business acumen competency that all managers have to really hone in on as well.
And then Jen, 30 seconds on technology.
Well, I mean, for me, I think, technology is something that's a must, right? We have to, it's continually changing. So we have to keep abreast of what's happening to bring that in and be able to advise the executives of what we should be doing. But also, I mean, a big thing that you guys touched on is, with everything, the communication piece is being able to empathize with the individuals that you are. Because a big thing is it's being able to listen, but also being able just to empathize with your employees. It's huge for them to be able to back you and be able to have your ideas with that. So being able to empathize is my big thing currently.
Okay.
Thank you for sharing that. So Mario has a question. He asks, can these courses be applied to a public administration field if he's already in this area?
Absolutely. The skills are really universal. Really what changes is the environment, whether it's in a public administration environment, or you're in the private sector, or you're in a nonprofit, or you're in something government or defense aerospace, or a little mom and pop that's struggling to reach their $1 million mark, at a 2-site restaurant chain. They're all, the skills are really universal. And as a manager, the only difference between managers is where they're assigned. The management skills that we focus on can cross just about every line, and you can play in every backyard that's out there.
Right. Excellent, excellent. I'm going to close off with this final question. This question says, will this program go over my head if I'm not knowledgeable about being a manager?
Jen, you're shaking your head. Why don't you address that?
No, this program will not go over your head. We cover, as Jim said in the session, it's for everyone. It really is. And when we know our students, we gauge it to that to be enough for each student, but also we work in teams in there. So you're really going to learn from each other there. It's a really great program too. If you're just really beginning, I really do find that. I've had it from my past courses where I get that feedback, and actually they're just barely going to jump in, and by the end of the course they're actually got the management role, and they're like, and they feel it was attested to the session, so to the classes. So I don't think it would be over your head.
Absolutely. I think this was a world of amazing information, and I want to thank every person. Jim, Linda, Jeanie, Jen, thank you so much for chiming in and really bringing this program to life. And I think at this point we have covered all of the questions. So I'm going to go ahead and jump back into the end of our presentation. And we have covered so much great information, but we do know that from time to time, people will still have continuing follow-up questions. So we want to make sure that you know how to contact us. Feel free to email us or call us during our business hours, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. at 310-243-2075, or email learn@csudh.edu if you have any additional questions about the program. And when you're ready to take those next steps and get registered, our registration office is standing by to take your registrations via phone at 310-243-3741, option number 1. And remember, if you have been a student recently at CSUDH, you can actually simply log into the My CSUDH portal and register for your courses online. So this concludes our Managing for Success Certificate Program information session, and we want to thank you for joining us today. Again, feel free to connect with us on our website, via social media, on our Facebook page, our LinkedIn group, and remember to register early to get your preferred spot in your class. And we'd love to get your feedback on today's session. So please let us know how we can improve the quality of the information by visiting bit.ly/CSUDH-webinar-feedback. The survey will also be available via a follow-up email to attendees. Now, we're going to stay in this session for just a few minutes more to give everyone a moment to jot down those last-minute notes, click the links, and download the Managing for Success information kit from the chat panel. The recording session for this, or the recording for this session will also be online shortly. It's on our website, it's on our YouTube channel and social media. When you're ready to leave, simply click the red leave button in the corner of your screen. And once again, we thank you for joining us today. Stay safe, and we look forward to working with you soon. Have a good day, everyone.